All right, so this is take 3. In the last video, we learned how to set up the database with Docker. We learned how to get the front end running, and we learned how to get the server running, the backend. What we didn't know is how does it all work? How does the backend talk to the front end? Hopefully, we'll answer that in this video. So, first, let's run the database. And then let's run the server. Sorry, let's run the server, and then let's run the front end. Cool. So, the important part of all of this is this line right here, line 41 on the home.jsx. There is a fetch request to this endpoint. Now, that's not really going to make too much sense right now, but think of it as just a URL for now. And basically it is. This API URL right here comes from the .env file, and the .env file is right here. You can change that, but for our cases and purposes, don't, probably. So, back to home. Now, the way React works is this useEffect hook is going to run on mount. And, and then when this runs, it's going to call a fetch request. To make this a little bit more apparent, let's say that the method is a get. Let's make sure that still works, but I assume it does. Cool. Okay, so this fetch request is fetching at this URL, and this first, we'll call it a first directory, but it's not a directory. This first thing right here corresponds to the API. It has the exact same name. This is by convention, and it's useful, and you should do this to make everyone not pull their hair out. So you can click on this API, and right away, you'll notice that actually it seems like you can just Control F search this, and you'll find it in Go. The way this works is you have a path and you have a method. If both of these things are true, then it will call a function corresponding to that. So here's our path, and here's our method. It's a get request on this path, on course/all. So if we go to course, sorry about this, go to course, we can see that we have this path and we have the get, and this is the function that's being called, get all courses. That's in the same file. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is if you wanted to get a single course, you would not want to call this all method. You would rather call a different method. You want to call just this one. And this one is going to call this and the get, and it's require an ID. So if you do not provide an ID inside the query params, because this is a get request, it's actually going to yell at you and tell you that. It's going to say, hey, bad request, you're missing an ID. Cool. So let's add an ID real quick. First, let's do an ID that doesn't exist, which would be 0. Now you'll see here I do the request and it gets through, but I failed to fetch the course. Let's do an ID that does exist. 1, except for maybe it doesn't exist anymore for whatever reason, because I was messing around with stuff. So if I go to here and I go to uroot and password, and I use the test database, and I show tables, and I select all from course. Okay, so the one doesn't exist anymore because I was messing around with it earlier in a different video that you'll never see. So now you can see I've returned the actual course with the ID, which is kind of cool. The way that works is if I stop the server, okay, I stop the server, I can actually go and debug what's happening. So here's the method that's going to be called, right? So I have the path, the get. So this is the method that's going to be called. Go inside here. I can debug this. Oh, one thing that might be useful. I showed this in the other video, but I'll show it again. If I edit configuration, I go to new, and I go to build, and I change this to go backend main.go. And this one is the main.go. If I do this, I can then debug this server. And when I do this request, it's actually going to go here and I can figure out what actually everything resolves to. So this request carries an ID parameter because it's sent with the request as a query parameter, right? So if I step through this, I can see, okay, ID is now equal to 2. Let's fetch the entity or the course from the ID. Okay. I'm setting ID. I'm making a new course. I'm setting the ID to the ID that I got, and I'm calling this read. And this read is like a really special, really cool function that you don't have to know what it does. You just need to know that it gets the database, it gets the object from the database using either two methods, either the primary key, which in this case is the ID, or any unique values. So you can actually check if the read is bad or good. And if it goes through, then it returns that. And you can set that entity. Cool. So here we go. This, don't worry about this. This is just because I'm returning something that's no longer an array, so it's kind of confused. But don't worry about that. So let's get this back. So now I showed you that. Let's do a post. Let's create a course. Let's do a post request. And remember, course, go to the API endpoint, or the course API. Go down here to the registered endpoints, find course, and find post. These are the things that are required. Go to the function that's going to call, and you can see what's actually happening here. I am creating a new entity. I'm creating a new course. I'm marking all of the things that I want to change, and I'm going to create it on the database. This create just creates it on the database. One thing that's a little bit tricky is this was shown in the other video, but I'll show it now again because let's say I don't have the department updatable and I try to update it here. Actually, that doesn't make sense. I'll do that in a second. For right now, the crate doesn't actually matter there. Okay, so if I do that, post is actually not going to work. The question is why? Why does post not work? And if you go to I actually think that's because you need a okay, got it. Sorry, my bad. I'm losing a little bit. So one thing that you should always have is your headers. It should, I think it's a content type or I think it's maybe this. Fetch post request JSON. So you want this. And then you want the body to have a JSON.stringify, nope, stringify the actual body parameter here, the body data. And so that's all going to get sent. And let's walk through what actually happens. Let's set a debug here, and let's go to our thing. Let's refresh, and let's see what happens. So I create the new entity, or course. I'm going to get the parameters from the request. So here, department is going to be CS. All these things get filled out. The name is WoW. The credits are 4, and that all comes from this body, right? So that's how that works. And then I create it on the database with this create. And then with this create, you can check if it's bad, and it'll tell you the errors. You can get the errors, and there you go. And it'll say, hey, created on the database successfully. So where does that actually happen? It happens right here. So you'll see I created it on the database right here. And just to prove that I did that, MA dude. Okay. So now you're doing the same thing, and I created it on the database. Maybe. Oh, actually, that's interesting. Okay, so another thing is, if I go to courses and I go to CRUD here, I can actually specify if something can be created. For right now, let's just delete this. Let's refresh. I didn't actually recompile. So when you're debugging, you have to either restart or use this wgo thing is better. So now it works. The course successfully created, and you can actually see that happening. Awesome. Awesome sauce. Okay. The next thing is, how do we do a patch? So in home, I'm going to say this is a patch method. I need the ID now. The ID is going to be 8. It's going to be a patch 8. Cool. Real quick, let's test out the updatable stuff. So if I don't have something updatable, it's actually going to yell at me when I do this patch request. And remember, the way you figure that out is you go to your API, you go down here, and you find out where patch is, and you find the corresponding function. So this is what's going to get run. So it should error here. It should say, hey, this thing is not updatable. Let's see if it actually does that. Go back here. Patch. Looks good. Okay. So refresh. Okay. So we'll notice the request went through, but department is not updatable. So that is a good thing to know. And you also have the stack trace, which is kind of nice. So you can figure out, oh, okay, where did stuff went wrong? Okay, follow it. Oh, I'm an API endpoint. This is where it went wrong. Probably this thing needs to be updatable. So you can actually click on this and go down here and add updatable to it. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, so now let's do a patch. Refresh, and I patched. So now this 8 should be something different. Yep. See, it changed. Cool. Now let's go over a delete real quick. Do a delete. I'm going to delete number 7. The delete actually went through already, just when I switched to the page, but you'll see number 7 is gone now. Number 8 is also gone because it did both of those. It's hard to test. So if I did number 6 here, and I go back, it'll say, hey, I deleted number 6, right? And then number 6 will be gone. It's hard to test because it's updating when I don't want it to update. I would rather it update when I refresh, but whatever. Cool. Okay, so it's doing all the things that we want it to do. I think I went through all of these now. So I did the get, I did the post, did the delete, did the patch. Okay, we already did debugging the server. And we did, we didn't create a new endpoint, but like it's very simple. So you go to the APIs, you go to register one, you're on here, you give it a name, something, and then you give it a function, you give it a method, and you can optionally give it a middleware without params. Okay, cool. Last thing I will show you is if I am trying to do a patch or a create. Let's do a create. So I'm trying to do a create, which is a post method. And I want to make the department MA something. Okay. There's going to be a really weird error that happens. And it's not clear why it happens. So I get this error and it's super confused. Data is too long for the column department. So that's confusing. But I'm here to tell you that it's actually not. So if you go in here and you search up the course here, you'll notice that the department has a varchar 5, so you cannot go over 5. Now, obviously, that's super limiting, and we'll change that in production, or we'll actually change that because this is just a test case for right now. But if you do something like MASO or CSO, then it'll go through and it'll create successfully. Last thing. If I go to inc course and then the course.grub, I can actually give it a rule on which it can create. So if I say if model.department is not equal to CS, I can append these errors. And once the errors is not nil, so once there's something actually inside the errors, this will prevent the actual operation from going through. So if I go here and I do this, the post request is going to say, hey, department must be CS. And that comes from here. And if you're ever unsure where an error comes from, because these are strings, there's a really good chance that if you grab it and you go inside here, you can then search for it and find exactly where that thing is happening. Okay, thank you so much. This is my third retake, so I'm sorry if I wasn't very energetic. Hopefully that was helpful though.